So what did you learn from the conversation with her?
I mean, it was extraordinary, actually, just to be able to... I read the book about 10 days ago, and so, as you can imagine, I've sort of had this all bottled up, thinking... Where do you start this conversation? There is so much that you want to hear
detail
from
in there.
And some of it, and I think, as we said on your show yesterday, it is pretty horrific. Yeah. It's devastating. Her descriptions of, for example, the depravity of Ghislaine Maxwell really come to the fore in the discussion we've had.
Because the narrative has grown that she's the poor sort of proxy for Epstein because he died.
Yeah,
but
she was
bears a great deal of responsibility.
Exactly, yeah.
Of her own.
To overtalk. Yeah. So that she was involved in the sex act, she was involved in the abuse, she was involved in some of the violence, actually, towards Virginia Giuffre, and that has become quite clear from her conversation. And we also asked about where the story goes more widely, because she has now told us, through the claims that Virginia Giuffre makes in this book, that there was not just the sex on one occasion in London, but on 2 other occasions, the third time being with other young girls on Epstein's Island, with Epstein himself. And so one of the questions I asked was, well, what does that do now to Prince Andrew? And I actually said to him, does it make his life easier that Virginia Giuffre is no longer here?
I don't think it's easy right now. And I think that's entirely appropriate. I would say maybe in the minutes after she died, it was made easier. But then, whoops, she left a book behind. And I guess here's what I would say about Prince Andrew. There was a time that he asserted that he was willing to help U.S. authorities in the investigation of Epstein. And he stated that through his lawyers more than once, and it never materialized. What I would say about Prince Andrew today is that I know he continues to deny, even though he settled with her for a great sum of money, that he didn't do anything wrong. Fine, let's leave that there for the moment. But he was on the island. He was in the Manhattan townhouse. He was on the jets. And remember, those jets aren't just jets with seats like we all live in when we travel. They're jets that are retrofitted with bedrooms so that you can traffic girls there. So he saw inside the world of Epstein and Maxwell. And if he really means it when he says, as he did in his settlement with Virginia, that he feels it's awful what these girls endured, it's a travesty, then he could come forward right now.
I mean, what she's saying there is he could name names. He can tell us who he saw when he was in Epstein's townhouses. He can tell us who he saw on the island. He can tell us who was on the jet. I mean, there is so much secrecy. We've talked about this before, Sheila, and I've called it the tip of the iceberg. But there is so much secrecy, really, as to who was complicit in Epstein's crimes, because we know from these women's accounts, these young girls' accounts, that there were plenty of other abusers around Epstein. And some names have circulated, but what Amy Wallace is saying is, yeah, if you want to be part of something that feels like, a sort of clean slate, if you want to help these young women, if you want to help, then bring us the names that you probably have.
The activities that Virginia posthumously and Amy talk about in the book, as you say, involves houses, the island, jets, recruitment of children outside high schools in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, this is beyond belief, isn't it, really? Except it's not anymore beyond belief.
Yeah. I mean, what is interesting as well is Virginia Giuffre's determination to have even the bits of her life that she is not proud of recounted in the memoir. And Amy Wallace said it was quite unusual. She's ghostwritten quite a few biographies or biographies, and it's very unusual that somebody says, no, I want the warts and all version. And the thing that Virginia Giuffre feels terrible about is that she was made to be complicit in this circle. In other words, she ended up bringing other young girls in. She told them exactly what it would involve. There was no sort of disguising. There was no sort of lying about it. But she looks back on that time and says she felt she had no choice because that was what they demanded of her, and she was essentially, a sex slave to them already. But it's the bit that makes her most ashamed of all the action she's done. And of course what it means is that if the FBI ever come knocking, then it's in Virginia Giuffre's own interest to say nothing, because she would be implicated in that as well.
And you can imagine as well, I mean, again, I can't say this with certainty, but her sense of status was probably zero in the way that she was being treated. Just personal status, I'm not talking about social status. Her sense of having any status would have been very low, and the idea that might give you some space to call your own, that you were in the big, in the big group, in the big team kind of thing. You can see the appeal of that almost.
Yeah, I mean, one of the moments of the conversation that I found really hard with Amy Wallace just now was when she describes that first meeting between Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre. We should say that Prince Andrew has categorically denied all the allegations, but she recounts the conversation where Ghislaine Maxwell says, "How old do you think she is?" And he says, "Oh, about 17." Which is right. And then he starts talking about his own daughters. "Oh, yes, I've got daughters, just slightly younger." And the idea, this is Amy's conversation, she says, the idea of whatever mental jiu-jitsu that took to go from talking about your own daughters to be able to specify exactly how old she was and still go on, according to Virginia Giuffre's claims, to have sex with her. You would think that there would be a moment, there would be a pause. If you walked into a room and you saw somebody who looked pretty much like one of your own daughters, you would stop there. But it doesn't happen. No. The other thing that we got from Amy Wallace was Virginia Giuffre's sense of what happened to Jeffrey Epstein on the night of his death. She had raised the question that she isn't entirely sure that he took his own life. Just have a listen.
In the book, Virginia kind of argues both ways. She says that she absolutely can understand why he would have killed himself, in the sense that this is a man who had all these sort of pseudoscientific self-justifications for why he had to rape girls repeatedly throughout the day. And he had, I need to have sex 3 times a day, and he was very, very, very arrogant, and he loved his ego to be stroked and to act as if he was so powerful. And so obviously being in jail, you don't get any of those things. It's a very humbling experience. And so she could imagine that it was awful and that he might want to end his life. On the other hand, she also knew, because she'd seen the videotaping equipment and the monitors in his homes, and he had said things to her that indicated that the whole goal of that taping system was to entice powerful men into the house, serve them up underage girls against their will, and videotape those things. Again, those tapes theoretically are in the Epstein files. And so she, so in that sense, she understood there were a lot of powerful people who might have an incentive to have him killed.
Which takes us to why she and others would have been very afraid to speak up.
Very afraid. I mean, she was afraid for her own life.
If they'll kill Epstein, what will they do to us?
Yeah, I mean, in the memoir you've got on your desk, she recounts the moment that she looks outside her house and she sees this car in the drive with the headlights. She doesn't know who it is, but she understands what it means, which is, I'm watching you. I know exactly where you live. I know where your children go to school. I know how old they are. And I'm watching you. I'm on your driveway. And she feared for her own life. I mean, she said that in the memoirs. But this is, I think, the first time we get that peek into her mind, where she thinks, there is a world in which there are enough powerful men out who wanted Epstein dead for them to have done it themselves.
And I saw her, Virginia's sister-in-law, speaking to Channel 4 yesterday evening, and she, in which she said, she was pleading with the world to help her to bring these people to justice and the other victims, to investigate it properly. And the first question you alluded to in our conversation to Amy was, does this made Andrew's life worse or better? There are dozens of names that have not been revealed, according to Amy Wallace. Certainly some connections we know about already. Some very famous names have been brought into the picture a lot, again, non-confirmed. Where does this leave any investigation or any room for further investigation?
Wide open. I mean, the question that she really resisted, I mean, not from me, but, you know, I guess the question that hangs over the book is, you know who all these people are. Why haven't you named them? Why hasn't Virginia named them? And she said, it's not down to the victims to keep naming them. They put their lives in danger every time they mention a serious, you know, powerful man. And Virginia Giuffre did her bit. You know, she went to the authorities. Many of the victims have done their bit. Yeah. They've taken the names. They've taken the names of their abusers to the police, to the FBI, to the investigators, to the Department of Justice, and said, here you are, what more can I do? And it rests now with the Department of Justice to decide if they want to, you know, do they want to
find out,
go after these men? Do they want to look at the video footage that is sitting there in the files to actually work out who is in Epstein's house? Do they want to actually use the material that they're already sitting on? And if not, why not?
And she makes the point in the book, and she certainly has in interviews as well, that this book is not just about Prince Andrew by any means.
Not at all. I mean, I think that is the British lens, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that with everything that's gone on in terms of titles, in terms of, you know, what we now know about his house.
And none of that has gone away yet, has it?
None of that's gone away. No. And, you know, I was sort of speaking to people quite close to the palace who said this is not comfortable for the king himself. He doesn't like this attention on his brother. He's trying to get stuff done. You know, as you were saying, he did this incredible visit to Manchester's synagogue and to Rome as well. And he actually wants to be telling the story of what the monarchy can do for good. And this is just, you know, it's very distracting. It's not something that he comfortably wants. You know, the sort of he's not vindictive. He doesn't want to see this happen. But things feel like they're coming to a head.
Yeah.
My sense is that they would probably like him out of Royal Lodge. I think they want him away from Windsor, away from...
A totally private individual, bye-bye.
Well, you know, private, I mean, maybe paid for privately by the king, but out of the way, not at the kind of seat of power.
Yeah.